Hello everybody, this is Lara from Pure Elliott Wave with a very quick update for Bitcoin technicals and technicals in Elliott Wave for XRP. I'm going to add on my rectangle for Bitcoin this slightly downward sloping channel in strong pink here. It's got a bit of a downward slope now, this rectangle. I'm also going to pull the lower edge of the rectangle down to sit on this low here for the 8th of July. This is now a false breakout. I said when price moved below the lower edge of the rectangle, which was previously down here at 56,500, when it moved below that on 5th of July and then closed below it on the 7th of July, I said I wanted to see 2 or 3 days down and away from that point in order to have confidence that was a downward breakout. That did not happen. Prices returned back above 56,500, now providing support, so I'll just change that to support. Price is back within the rectangle. This was a false breakout. Rectangles, unfortunately, are plagued by numerous false breakouts. That's why I wanted to institute that 2 or 3 day array rule. The rule wasn't met, there's no breakout. The rectangle now has a slight downward slope, which is actually a little bit more bullish. Perversely, corrections, when they have a slight counter trend slope, a little bit more reliable as corrections. I am expecting overall now an upward swing for price to reach resistance at this pink trend line and 71,500 to 73,100, so somewhere in this area. In order for there to be an upward breakout, I need to see a close above 73,100 and then 2 or 3 days up and away before I can eliminate the possibility of a false upward breakout. For now, let's look for support at 56,500 down to about 55,000 and about 54,300. Downward movement down to the last low did come with an increase in volume. That's normal for the end of downward movements for Bitcoin. Happened here. It happened somewhat here. It happened here. Didn't happen here. It did happen here. Doesn't always happen, but it happens more often than not. So this may be the end of downward movement. Upward movement for the 8th of July does have some push from volume, but it's still not stronger than the 5th of July. I want to see some upward movement with an increase in volume now, day on day, to have confidence that the upward swing is underway. Don't expect it to move in a straight line. It could be choppy and overlapping. ADX still tells us there's a downward trend for the short term for Bitcoin. This is a lagging indicator. If that downward movement has found support and we're going to see an upward move now, ADX may not tell us for a little while. It's based here on a 14-day average, so it's going to take at least 2 weeks to turn this around. One big reason why I do expect support is likely to hold and we're now going to see some upward movement at least to resistance as RSI reached oversold on 24th of June and then a pivot developed with the 5th of July. Price closed to a lower low, but RSI has made a higher low. This divergence is bullish, and after it occurs when RSI reaches oversold for this market, it tends to be associated with lows which are sustained at least for the short to mid-term. So look for an upward swing now to resistance is very likely. Money flow is neutral. ATR starting to show a little bit of an increase after that low, so a little bit of strength in terms of volatility, not yet volume though, up off that low. Stochastics reached deeply oversold and also exhibited single bullish divergence, supporting the view that we're going to get some upward movement, at least for the short term for Bitcoin. Whether it breaks above resistance, I won't be able to tell you yet. I expect it's most likely, but let's see how it behaves as it gets up there and what volume tells us. The weekly Elliott Wave count for XRP considers a triple zigzag has completed for an intermediate degree second wave correction. I do also have an alternate wave count which has a target, a bullish target, just a bit above $3, not nearly this bullish. So if you want to see my alternate analysis, you'll have to look back through my videos and find the last one where I covered monthly charts, my main and alternate for XRP. This wave count is a main wave count. It expects a third wave at cycle, primary and intermediate degree has begun last week at the low, and we're now going to see upward movement with an increase in volume, momentum and range. If minor wave Z of intermediate 2 continues any lower, intermediate 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.2794. Intermediate 2 fits nicely within this downward sloping best fit channel. If we see a full daily candlestick above and not touching the upper edge, a green candlestick, that would give confidence that intermediate 2 is complete and intermediate 3 is then underway. Intermediate 3 may only subdivide as an impulse. It must move beyond the end of 1 and it has to move far enough above 1 to then allow 4 to unfold and remain above wave 1 price territory. Once once the core Elliott Wave rule stating 3 moves beyond the end of 1 has been met, that's when I pull the risk and invalidation point up to the end of 2. For now, this is where your risk remains. Please, people, do manage risk carefully. At the daily time frame, we're looking at the end of intermediate wave 2. We're looking at minor wave Z, a zigzag, A, B, long extended C wave as an ending expanding diagonal. XRP does tend to have a lot of diagonals, lots of choppy overlapping movement. Technicals for XRP, it produced a strong bullish hammer candlestick for the 5th of July, about support at 40 cents. The target from the ascending triangle was 0.4227. That was met and somewhat passed, and prices quickly moved back above support at 0.40. Still finding support here, moving up very slowly with a really small volume and range, finding resistance now at 0.46. For a bullish outlook for XRP, I want it to break above 55 cents and then move up and away for 2 or 3 days, because we've had a false breakout back here. Could happen again. So to filter out a false breakout, I'll use the 2 to 3 day away rule. Volume a little bit declining along with range as price moves higher. This, unfortunately, I keep saying this and it really does bear repeating. You have to be really patient around cryptocurrency lows, and as they find a low, you'll be expecting, is it in here? Looks likely. No, slight new low, slight new low. Okay, finally, is it in here? And eventually, I know people say a stopped clock is right twice a day. That's just so annoying. It's also kind of on point for finding lows though, because they just are so hard to identify, because cryptos can be so weak off their lows, and it's not only until many sessions, usually weeks after the low has formed, that you see enough strength and upward movement to have confidence that the bullish run is underway. The highs hard to identify but not as difficult. The lows really hard to identify. I want to see a close above 55 cents for XRP, and I want to see some increase in volume and momentum before I really have confidence that the low of 5th of July is going to remain intact. At this stage, I'm saying it's probably about 60 or 70% likely that it's going to remain intact. This is a balance of probability, not certainty. And that's something I think is a little bit difficult for some people to wrap their heads around, but that's what I'm trying to do here. ADX is slightly declining now, no longer telling us there's a downward trend for XRP, so the market's consolidating. RSI reached oversold again on the 5th of July as that bullish hammer candlestick pattern unfolded for XRP, and then there's a pivot developed now for the 7th of July between price and RSI. Prices closed lower slightly on the 7th. RSI has moved higher. So looking at the closing point for price, so we're comparing like with like, because the point of RSI is determined at the close of the session. We have very small short-term bullish divergence after RSI reached more deeply oversold than it did back on the 13th of April. On the 13th of April, I expected that because RSI had reached oversold, it was very likely that that low was going to remain intact. Likely but not certain. That wasn't certain, and we did have a lower low for XRP, albeit very briefly. Now with a deeper oversold RSI and single bullish divergence, the probability of the low for the 5th of July remaining intact is higher. Money flow is neutral, no bullish divergence. Stochastics are neutral and moving higher. So with no clear trend, a model of stochastics plus support and resistance expects an upward swing for price to continue to resistance about 55 cents, and stochastics to continue higher to reach overbought. If they get you there simultaneously, depending on what ADX says, we may expect an upward swing to end there. That's it from me today, with a very quick update for you as I get back on the road, travelling down toward, well, we're going down to a small town in Spain to try and get some really good waves for a few weeks, and I'll be settled for a few weeks, so hopefully when I'm settled and not doing so much travelling, I'll be able to provide more regular analysis for you. So thank you for your patience, everybody.